this computer.
Okay.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone. I hope you liked that little musical introduction, Hard Day on the Planet. And I want to acknowledge that it is a hard day on the planet for many of you and many of the people and the communities that you're working in. I am coming to you from the beautiful Biripi country in Port Macquarie, where I haven't had nearly the COVID impact that many of you have had. So I'm very appreciative of that. I'm very appreciative of the local custodians of this beautiful place and how welcome I feel when I'm here and how much I get to connect with culture in my work and in my life in general. I hope you do too. You know that I always love it when people pop into the chat the name of the place where you are. If you do know the traditional name of the place where you are, we love to know that, and we love to know your town or suburb that you're in. So that we can see, you know, where everybody is. You can also say, you know, the name of your organisation if it's not obvious from the naming of your video box. It's also great to know the range of organisations that are joining us. I just want to say hello to Jen, another of the Highwire team. Hello, Jen. Give us a wave so people know your face. Jen Downey is waving. There we go. There we go. She's on slow-mo. There we go. Look at where we are. Ah, Blue Mountains, lovely, Bron. And I'm going to say Gundungurra, but that's because I'm courageous to have a go at things, so I could have gotten that completely wrong. Bidjigal Land, lovely. Thank you, Olivia. And where else are we? Let me have a proper look in the chat.
I don't know how to type on this, but I'm in Ghana land.
Thank you, Cheryl. That's fabulous. You're always welcome to use your voice, anybody.
Still learning.
Ghana land, down in the Adelaide Plains. Fantastic. Awabakal. Oh, yes, around Lake Macquarie there. Beautiful. Woohoo. Oh, and Bron Webster's also on Ghana land down there on the Adelaide Plains. Thank you, everyone. And Bernardo's joining us from beautiful Gadigal country of the Eora Nation. Worimi country, Sue Pollock. Tell me again where Worimi is. I find that one quite hard to. Oh, no, I know because I know where you are, Sue. Beautiful Port Stephens. Oh, I do love going there for a holiday. What's it like living in a holiday destination? Oh no, I live in Port Macquarie. It's a bit like that, but so do you love the tourists coming, Sue, or do you kind of go?
We're in the middle of a Department of Housing estate, Marie. We're nowhere near the water.
I know where you are. I was just setting up a beautiful scene. You're not far from the water.
About an hour. An hour from the water bit, from the dolphins.
There we go. There we go. So I want to welcome anyone who's joining us live for the first time. This is a fabulous turnout. I must say this is either indicating a boredom because of lockdown and you'll tune into anything that looks mildly interesting, or you are interested in how COVID might be impacting on the assessment. So hopefully it's either one of those, but you're very, very welcome here. And I want to say hello to anyone who's watching the recording. Good on you. Grabbing a cuppa and sitting down and watching the recording, doing some learning. Fabulous. So thank you all for taking the time. We take an hour. So you'll be surprised how very much we can fit into an hour. And it's always better when people talk and engage, such as asking questions and sharing what's working, what's not working. Super helpful. You will know that we record it, and you will know that it also comes with generally 1 or 2, sometimes 3 or 4 resources that might be helpful on topic. So you know where to find those. You'll find those in the resources tab on our website in the client only area, special just for you. So there we go. This week, this month, we wanted to talk about the impact of COVID because it's been impacting on some of our more recent assessments, and we've been finding amazing ways of working with you, and we've been doing a lot of learning. So we thought we might be at a point where we could share some of that and set down some ways of working for future assessments, which is most of it. We've got a couple going on right now. In fact, it's this week, isn't it, that our friends at Youth Off the Streets have had their hybrid assessment. Lisa, is that right?
It's next week. We start on Monday.
Oh, beautiful. So that's,
So I would actually like to, if I can, just acknowledge
oh,
the
Sonia's here. There she is.
yeah,
Yeah.
that Sonia and Leanne is here as well.
Oh,
That
beautiful. Thank you.
we have had, I think we're up to version 147 of the schedule because, it has been really challenging. So I just would like to really say thank you to Sonia and Leanne. I'm very grateful that both Sue and I live in the Newcastle bubble, so I can go to them in person week after next. So Sonia and Leanne, thank you very much for all of your help in making sure that we get this done next week.
Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent. So we have been living with COVID for a while, and we have done quite a number of assessments in that time. And so that knowledge of how they can work has been evolving only through great collaboration with everyone that we've been working with. Those examples there shared by Lisa. The other thing that's been helpful is that the Department of Communities and Justice and the Department of Human Services, two of the people looking after the regulatory end of business, have now started putting out some real guidance for us about where COVID intersects with the indicators in the framework. So, we've been plodding along, kind of typing things in your reports and in the reports that we've been doing, and then getting feedback from the department about, oh, hang on, you need to mention that there, and you need to let us know about their COVID safe plan. And so we thought, right, let's all just get on the same page with that. And I think a lot of what we'll talk about today will be very affirming for you, because you'll go, oh yeah, tick, oh yeah, done, oh yeah, no worries. So it's not going to be anything additional, but it's certainly important to have a bit of a COVID lens over the way that you're approaching your evidence. Okay, so I think let's see if how much of our understanding of the sorts of things that we might need to see as evidence to do with COVID are within your frame of reference already. Okay, so I found 20 indicators where I think COVID would be impacting, and therefore you might consider, how you talk to us if we asked you a COVID specific question. Because that's what the departments are looking for. They're looking for that very important risk lens over the impact of COVID, right? So they would expect to be seeing that through quite a range of your functions, right? So let's have a look at those. I'm going to start off with just talking about how we've been approaching the on-site assessment before I go into the detail of all the indicators. That's to give you time, if you would like to bring up your workbook. If anybody's got their hand, digitally available to them, or even dig it out of that folder, Felicity, go reach over and grab that folder and bring it over and have a look at the workbook, because you'll be able to go through with us when I get to those indicators, and that might be more interesting to you. But what I have done for you is I've got a workbook that I've highlighted all of the COVID impacted indicators for you. So I'm putting that up as a resource. So if you just want to kick back and drink your cup of tea, you can do that too, right? So there you go. How we've been approaching the assessment. Wow, where we can plan, we've been giving services the opportunity to have a hybrid. We've been giving you the choice. So we'd like to continue doing that. Where COVID restrictions such as lockdown or restricting travel, border closures, things like that are impacting, we are very happy to do a virtual assessment. Now you'll probably be going, oh, but how would you get here and see our beautiful space? Well, we are doing a great job of using technology, and we would be very happy to have, and the department would support this, a virtual walkthrough. Not my favourite. I love doing the big walkthrough and seeing your sites and getting a feel for the culture of your organisation through being in your space. So it's not our preferred, but it is an option for you, right? So we will be giving you a choice of how you'd like to roll. You can do a totally virtual assessment, and we will make that work with your preferred platform, whether that be Zoom or Teams or Carrier Pigeon, whatever you've got available, right? And we do it as visually as we can, all right? So with faces and all that there. We can do a hybrid a hybrid. I think this might be becoming Lisa's favourite. So what we're doing is we're doing all of our interviews using Zoom or Teams or similar. And then we're organising, when we can get in, we're organising to come and do the site visit. So we would spend a day on site. If you had one site, we might spend 2 days if you had 2, 3, 4 sites that we were visiting. But then we would spend that time just focusing on the things that we would see in your environment. Right? So when we come, we can do, you might say, oh, we think it'd be much better if you did the client interview face-to-face. So we can include that there. So it's going to be collaborative. How much we do on site, how much we do off site, how much we do virtually and how much we do in person, right? So that is something that we will just make decisions about together, whatever works for you. And the other option through COVID is to postpone the regulatory environment. When I talk about the regulatory environment with specialist homelessness services, I am talking about New South Wales. So if you're joining us from another state, you might think, oh God, is this something I don't know about and I've forgotten about? No. In New South Wales, all the specialist homelessness services will need to be Service Excellence accredited by when? Let me pick someone who knows, Margie.
Right, not on the ball there. 2014, just changed it.
By the end of June 2024. So we do have time to postpone. That's not what everybody will choose to do, but it's an option. And so we want you to know that we are very flexible with moving the dates. Even if we postpone for a month or if we postpone for a year, which some services have done, right? It's all fine. So you just need to work back from the 30th of June 2024 in terms of the time it's going to take you to reorganise to have that assessment done. All right, our team is big enough, our assessing team is big enough for us to provide that flexibility. Right, so I don't want you to worry what that clause in the service agreement says. One of our values is to be collaborative and be flexible with you. So that's what we would like to do. Any questions about the on-site assessment? David McAllister from Glebe House, lovely to see you.
Okay, Marie, and thanks for having this. So is Highwire assessing all these other cohort here? Because we got a different assessor.
Yes, you do.
But I just got to change the name basically.
You will, what I would encourage you to do, Dave, can I just explain that some of the organisations here we are working with in a coaching capacity, and some of the organisations here we are working with in an assessor capacity. If I'm working with you as a coach, what I encourage you to do is contact your assessor and say, this is how we would like to manage this. All right, they should be contacting you and saying, you know, hey, I can see that you're impacted there. Well, how would you like to manage it? But if they're not, please get on and say, we would like to do this virtually and we'd like to do that on site, da-da-da. Okay. I know some of those other assessors on the panel. We're all good mates, actually. We've been working together for a long time, and some of them been contacting me and saying, look, I can't get into Sydney from Adelaide. Would you mind doing the site visit for me? So that's lovely. You know, that's the sort of thing that can happen too. And that's certainly happening between me and the assessor that you've got, David. But that would be a conflict of interest for me and you, David. So that wouldn't happen. Oh, I'm on the record now. I'm going to be careful what I say. Any other good questions like that? Should we get into the nitty-gritty? So we've got your workbooks open. Open your workbooks up. I'm going to share my screen with you just in case you couldn't be bothered opening up your workbook. So I thought that might be helpful. I'll do that now. Now let me just move that away so we can slide. All right, let's get to the top of this. Now this might seem fast and furious, but if you have a question, just unmute yourself and interrupt so that we can be talking to each other. The first one I found is 2.2.5. Now remember, this is where you might need to be mentioning planning, COVID response, with your evidence. So this evidence guide won't have kept up with all of that. So that's why we thought we'd go through some of it. 2.2.5, that's the policy and procedure standard, isn't it?
Yep.
I hear you say, haha. Sorry about that if anybody's finding that annoying. There's a lot, isn't there? Okay, there's 2.2.1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There you are. 2.2.5, records are available to demonstrate consistent application of policies and procedures for all areas of operation across the organisation. So you need to be showing us things like standard documentation being completed. So if you have a sign-in procedure, which is helping you to track and monitor who's visiting your service, if you're keeping a list rather than QR coding people who are visiting your service, it will be important that you have those records available, not necessarily to show us, but to prove to us that you're keeping that record for the health orders, right? So at the moment, the legislation says you need to keep those records in some form. You need to enable that. So when it says records are available to demonstrate consistent application of policies and procedures, we will probably be asking you about how you're keeping records of people visiting your service. All right, more important than ever. The next one is 2.2.7. If you're having a look at your place, privacy and confidentiality. Now, the point I wanted to make here about COVID is just be sure that with any sign-in procedures that you might be using as your COVID registration process, that names are not visible to other members of the community. So I just wanted to say that a good practice the other day when I was visiting, I hope Felicity doesn't mind to mention, I was visiting Moree Family Support, and there was someone at reception writing down the names of everyone that came in. So it wasn't a piece of paper out in the waiting area that was visible for everyone. I'm sure that those of you providing, direct client services and to people at risk would see you wouldn't do that. So just be cautious about any names of people that might be around in the place in a sign-in sort of procedure. If what I'm saying doesn't make sense, please interrupt me and I'll clarify. So far, so good, hey? So I'm sure those things you're going, oh, yeah, no dramas there. But just because we might be asking you specific questions about your COVID response. Okay, obvious one here. 2.4.3 is your incident reporting. There is a requirement at the moment, and if you have a look through your resources from your contract manager or through your funder, through DCJ, there is a requirement at the moment that you are reporting to the public health unit your awareness of anybody who's contracted COVID, and that any prolonged interruption to service be reported to your contract manager. So just making sure that you have got, evidence of any, if you have knowledge of any people in your organisation, clients or staff, visiting contractors, COVID status needs to be reported either to the health unit or to your contract manager. So at least a record of anything to do with COVID-related incidents. Okie doke. I'm sure that's already.
Marie, it's Margie here. Can I interrupt? Sorry.
Yes.
So does that include, I assume it does, submission of our business management plans during COVID lockdown, etc. So that ongoing updates in relation to that section?
Yep, that'll be covered in risk management, Margie.
I was going to, okay, all right.
Yeah.
So I've moved too far forward, sorry.
No, you're great. That's exactly the sort of thinking we're expecting people to have. Hang on, what about this? What about that? Yes, you're right. Okay, so any incidents, and particularly COVID related, are identified, recorded and reported. That's why I've highlighted that one.
So,
And we'll get down to your COVID response plan. Question?
yes, just on that one there. So client goes to get the vaccine injection, and what is it getting the vaccine injection? He gets a close contact of a person who tested positive. So we record it, report it, and document it.
Yes, yes, as you would any of your other incidents.
Yeah.
So we might ask you a question such as, how are any COVID-related incidents being recorded? And you should have a fairly robust system for reporting incidents. And you would know that if any of your clients did contract COVID, that you would need to be contacting the public health unit. I have actually got that directive, the link to that directive available to you. It's on the DCJ website, and it's all specific to your specialist homelessness services. So it's a really good resource, actually. I've got that link to share with you at the end of this, though you've probably visited that site.
Yeah.
Great. So 2.4.4, clinical risks are identified. Now, we recently clarified with the department what the term clinical risk refers to. And I have to say, we were coming from very, very different places about what clinical risk was. When I tell you what their definition of a clinical risk is, you will probably, in fact, I'll take a poll with the group, and I'll get you to give me a thumbs up if you think, oh yeah, that's how I would assess clinical risk. They've said to us, clinical risk is anything where a person would be at risk of needing medical attention. So a clinical risk is where something could happen that a person might need medical attention. So that could be a fall, that could be infection such as COVID, that could be cutting themselves and, bleeding, all sorts of things where a person might be injured and need medical attention. So that's how they're identifying a clinical risk. Let's do the poll now, just 1 second, because I was really on the wrong page with all of that. Who would put their thumbs up to say, yeah, that's how I would determine what clinical risk is? Let me just see any thumbs up. Kylie said, great, good-o. All right, so my previous understanding was that it was risks that were to do with a clinical environment, such as a medical practice or a hospital. Okay. So that's how I was reading it, but no. So we wanted to let you know that the way that we're reading it now is a clinical risk is anything that might cause someone to need to get medical treatment. And do you have a plan in place for safeguarding against that? So we would see COVID planning as part of that. Okay, so you need to have something in place to manage the impact of infection, and particularly COVID. Right. Okay, thanks for helping me out with that one, because I was so all over the place with that. I'm not going to argue with them. I'm just going to help everyone to understand the interpretation of it. I choose my arguments these days. Okay. Next one. So yeah, that one talks about infection control. All right. So clinical risks such as infection control, obvious one to do with COVID there. All right. So this latest version of the evidence guide has a lot more detail than your earlier versions of the evidence guide. Helpfully so. Here is 2.4.6. It says that all significant projects and purchases have appropriate risk management strategies. The reason I put this one in here is because we'd want you to be thinking about projects and events. I know a lot of you can't get out at the moment, but if you were organising events, trips, excursions, picnic in the park, mum's group, field trip, something like that, you would want to have as part of your risk assessment the consideration of COVID. So infection control and those sorts of things would have to be part of your risk planning there for any project or event. So I'd like you to see it that way. It says significant there, but think about it as a one-off thing that you might do as a project or an event. The next one here, 2.4.7. audits are undertaken. And what this means is, and remember we're in the risk management standard here, what this means is that you'll have a risk plan and you'll have a range of mitigating strategies, you know, treatments, controls, and audits is your way of monitoring that those strategies are in place and effective. So if you have a risk plan around COVID or even a business continuity plan around COVID, we would want to see that you're doing some checks to make sure that those strategies are fully implemented and effective. So, you know, it might be things like if you do have a sign-in procedure that you go and check that people are keeping those records as you should be. Or if you have, you know, requirements around increased levels of cleaning, that you're checking to make sure that that is happening. If you've got some additional processes in place in some of your residential facilities, you know, auditing and checking that those things are being adhered to. Okay, so a question that Lisa, Bron, Jen might ask is, you know, what sorts of things are you doing to reduce the risk of infection, such as COVID? And then we would say, and how do you know that that's happening? You see, that's a tricky question. How do you 100% know that that's happening 100% of the time? Oh,
What's the answer?
what's the answer? The answer is, I get about and I have a look at this and I make sure that we've got 100% compliance with that. And I even run my finger over the surfaces and I go, yeah, that's nice and clean. Whatever you do, okay, it's all your environments are so very different. You know, what percentage, I don't know, like mask wearing, all those sorts of things now. How many of your, what planning processes have COVID consideration now? I would think all your planning processes might need to take account of COVID now. So you could be checking those sorts of things in terms of the data that you're collecting about your clients, you know, there you go. All right, so checking is important. Here we go. This is our favourite, isn't it? Our BCP. Our BCP, yeah, you know me. This is 2.4.8. And this is making sure, and most of your organisations would have been required to develop your COVID risk plan and your COVID continuity plan, something, I don't know what they're called. But Margie seemed to be saying, you know, that there's a particular document that is part of our risk plan, which is helping us to know, you know, how we're managing the impact and sometimes the sudden impact of COVID with restrictions and closures and things like that. All right. So your business continuity plan, whether it's part of your risk plan or whether it's a separate document, would need to take account of how you're managing the impact of those restrictions and those risks of closure, because you're providing essential services. And so you need to have a plan for what you're going to do if you do have to close your door or if you can't get key staff coming along to your site. And there's a range of responses in place, aren't there? I mean, take a moment to type into chat some of the things that you've been doing. Some of the things are included in your business continuity plan or your COVID recovery plan. What's been working well? Take a moment to type to or unmute yourself and talk to your colleagues there about what sorts of things have been important. It's a fabulous time for learning, isn't it? And seeing what's working, what's not working. Feel free to talk to us or type to us. Okay, I don't think there's much in the finance indicators, but we get down then to, close your eyes if you're a bit worried about all that there. 4.1.2, is it? 4.1.2, yes, it's induction. So we would like to see your induction checklist now. Please, importantly, include things to do with COVID, such as infection control, reporting, social distancing, physical distancing, you know, all the rules about not coming to work if you're unwell, da-di-da-di-da, time off for testing, all those things there. So include that in your induction and making sure that they're getting information about the current health orders and all that sort of stuff there. You might have new COVID sorts of or pandemic policies. So just making sure that you've got good reference to those in your induction. How are you going so far? You're getting lots of ticks?
Yep.
Oh, that's really good. All right. Now here I've got some interesting little bits. You can disagree with me about this if you would like, and you're not necessarily going to get curly questions here, but it's for you to consider that the code of conduct defines acceptable behaviours. So, you know, I always think that people's behaviours is influenced by their attitude. You know, so how they think on things influences how they act on things, right? So I'm wondering about the code of conduct defining acceptable behaviour around COVID. All right, so the importance of maintaining a very high level of compliance to protect our clients and protect our communities. Okay, so your tolerance for non-compliance there, you'll know how to talk it up, but you know, I think it's really important. And when I've been visiting services, I have just seen the most amazing modelling of all of that. All right, to the point where I was quite surprised the other day. I had a meeting with a real estate agent here in town because my sister's looking for a place here, and we turned up to an inspection in someone else's home, so a rental property with other people in the group. And the real estate agent said, we're all wearing our masks, and she said, oh, I don't think we need these, do you? I'm so sick of them. And she actually encouraged everyone to kind of take them off. And I said, oh no, I'm keeping mine on because I'm hopeless. You know, I'm still practicing making sure I don't forget it. So I'll just keep mine on to keep, you know, to help my brain out because I'm forgetful. So yeah, I thought, oh, that's a bit weird. So yeah, but in our sector, we're doing a great job of all of that. But I just wanted to say about ethical behaviour and stuff. There's this sort of some themes coming out. I don't know if you've been having discussions in your organisations about vaccinations, the sorts of things that you might require of your staff and how that might be legislated. So, you know, I think those kinds of conversations and making sure that we're observing the rules, but also people's rights is a difficult one. So give some considerations to that. Another one here about the documents are consistent with the organisation's values and things like that. So the organisation might need to think on its position around things like vaccination. If you have people in the team who might be anti that, what's your position? What sort of action would you take to make sure that the rights of your staff and volunteers are observed, right? Getting down here to 4.1.7, this is about flexible workplace arrangements, and you will have a range of flexible workplace arrangements in place, but we wanted also for you to give consideration to how COVID's impacting on that and the choice that people might want to have about their personal level of safety coming into the workplace. How will you manage that? What will you document about that flexibility? So how much time can people work from home? What things might they need to have to set up a flexible workplace arrangement? You know, so consideration there, and probably referencing COVID and pandemic response in your flexible workplace policy. That could be a good thing to think about. What's next? We're getting there. Here we go, 4.1.10. Gee, 4.1 is a long standard, isn't it? Oh, there's a lot in that one. That's all the human resources, but legislative mandatory training to make sure that legislative requirements are met by you as an employer. But that's important. And so we probably want to see that you had as part of your mandatory training the infection control now. What do you think? That'd be something. Are there many organisations who've started doing that? I just might have a little look at you for a moment and just see what people are saying, about what did I just say then? Mandatory training. Give me some sort of reaction if you have included infection control as part of the mandatory training that you want people to have. Yeah, okay, few people nodding. Excellent, lovely. Thanks, Olivia, giving me the nice Homer Simpson thumbs up there. Beautiful. All right, so pretty important, given that it's part of the health orders in the Work Health and Safety Act that be provided. So, you know, staff should know if we interview staff and we ask them about the sorts of things that they're doing to reduce the chance of infection, they should be able to tell us that they have had training and that they know the sorts of things that they are responsible for. So that would probably be a question we would ask the staff, because that's where it's implemented at that level. All right, we're almost there. Questions can come at any time. Okay, workplace health and safety. This is all very obvious. You will need to have something about infection control in your work health and safety policy. Your work health and safety system would need to include things like signing in, hand washing, social distancing. All those things should be evident to us when we are walking around. Your QR code should be there. Other information that people might need to be safe. And we will need to see that implemented in practice when we're observing the behaviours when we come on site, when we're observing the behaviours of people. That would include contractors, anybody that's coming into your space. You'll have a responsibility to look after them as a PCBU. And I know you know what that means. All right. The next one here is, again, having some audits to make sure that people are complying with those requirements of your COVID plan, your COVID risk planning, all that there. Your requirement, here we go, 4.2.5, one of our favourites, providing a healthy workplace. So there will be a lot of strategies here that staff and any interviewees would be able to share with us about the sorts of things that are happening there to ensure a healthy workplace. And so you put a COVID lens over that and say, what are the sorts of things that are happening to make you feel safe about working here when it comes to COVID.
Mari, can I just ask, would
Yes.
you also include mental health in that?
Yeah, so a healthy workplace, yes, a healthy workplace would mean to us that things like resilience and, you know, external counselling might be available, for private and confidential counselling might be available, that you are doing things that staff often tell us that we have more regular check-ins with our manager now than we did before, you know, just to make sure that everybody's okay. We have more team meetings online than we did before, just to make sure everybody's feeling connected. So yes, all of those things would be included in the healthy workplace. But there might be a range of strategies that have been implemented around people's health, physical health and mental health since COVID. That's what we've been finding anyway. So if you've got a healthy workplace policy, it will be great to start including some of those strategies in there. If you've implemented them but you haven't yet updated some of those documents, that would be a thing to think about through this process. Yeah, so running the COVID lens over lots of the things that you're doing in your work and just seeing that it's keeping up. You might still use the term pandemic. You know, it's possible that we'll have a different named pandemic in the future. So, you know, we might just keep the term pandemic. You could use COVID-19 if you want to, but, you know, I think it's a pandemic response, isn't it? Molly. Shush now. It's a silly bark, isn't it, that she's got?
I'm going to ask one of the most stupid questions in the world.
Oh, fantastic. Let's go.
Great. Let's put it. So we are constantly sort of looking at when it's active, when it's COVID's active, and when it's inactive, practices change. So when you're reviewing all this, we won't necessarily have all those practices in place when it's not active. This seems to be the general conversation that's going on at the moment. So we rev up when it's active and try and formulate planning around that. So it's very dynamic. I find that it's changing literally daily. So it's a point in time as well as reflecting some of the changes in these in this evidencing all these policies, which we're still working on because we're still learning as we go. So all of these will be what's the word, compliant?
Yeah, but fluid as well.
That's right.
And we would expect that, Margie. We would expect to see a level of control over all of your activities. Okay, so that's the important thing about auditing policies and procedures and systems, is that they're to provide effective control over the functions in the organisation, you know, so that you saying to me there is, well, when this happens, we do this. And when this happens, we do this. And we've got that documented, and we know that our team know how to respond, right? We know that our team know, and when we say this is now we're in this, they know what to do. So you see that sort of level of control over that activity. And when it's to do with, you know, legislative requirements and keeping people safe, that's super important at that end. Yeah. But our audit, our on-site assessment is a moment in time too. So we absolutely look at what's happening at that time. Yeah. So that's a good point to make too. You know, we won't be looking at what did you do last year. We'll be looking at, you know, what's happening now. Okay. Yeah. But just this session's about just running the COVID lens over some of your processes and documents, some of your systems. Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. Okay, 6.1.5, ensuring that your communication, the way that you communicate all the things that need to be happening to keep people safe, are effective for the audiences that that you are communicating to. What we mean by that is that you know, your clients and your external stakeholders and contractors like us that visit, and your staff will probably have some different messaging, you know, around COVID. So just making sure that information to keep people safe in your workplace and in your service is communicated in a way that people can know and understand easily. Alrighty. So, you know, if it's a complex pandemic policy, and that's where everything's documented, that might not work for, you know, young people that you might have in a refuge, for example. Right? So how are you communicating staying safe in a refuge that's housing, you know, young women, for example? So as opposed to how might you be communicating COVID safe messages in your office? All right, seems obvious, but it's worth thinking about, along with all the other important messages that, that are communicated. Is that it? Where are we up to? No, there's a couple in 8.1. So if we're going down to 8.1, which is the consumer outcomes standard, isn't it? Cheryl would know. She's all across this. She'd be going, oh yeah, that's that one. 8.1.3, what's that all about? Yes, so all of the people that you work with, that you work for, so all of your, we call consumers, not a great word, your clients, your communities, your participants have information about all of those things there, including any risks and the way that they'll need to participate and help to keep people safe. So this is the specific one here, prevention and control strategies for consumer safety and well-being, such as infection control and safety procedures, things like that. Right, so just to, you know, put a bit of a COVID lens over that one, making sure that if you've got like a client information booklet or the rights, the sort of rights that you might go through with clients at intake will include your prevention strategies in there. And the very, very last one is this one here. Working in partnerships and collaborating with other service providers for consumers' continuity of care. So I'm taking a literal view at that, and I'm suggesting that sometimes, and there might be some of you who have examples of this, such as yachts and Glebe House, you know, when you have to close your doors or if you have to restrict your service, how do you work with the rest of the providers in your service network to make sure that there's continuity of care? So you might be sharing some functions around still being able to provide that service. So those ideas will have come to you through any business continuity planning, you know, so who are we working with? So if we can't open here, how are we going to house these people, or what might we do if people are in crisis, or those sorts of things there. So how are you collaborating with the rest of the service system there to be able to provide a continuity of care through COVID? That's the last one. I can stop sharing that now. I can take any questions or any worries or confusion before I go on to just go for it, David.
Is that version 8?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, that's the new evidence guide. If you don't have that, well, why don't I do? No, I'm putting that evidence guide up in with the resources. Lisa will load that one with all the highlighted sections in case that's helpful. But what I'm hoping is that you're sitting there going, yeah, we're all right. We've got that covered, right? Because you will get some COVID specific questions in your interviews.
So these aren't those highlighted ones. They're not added to the version 8. They're just highlighted and as a COVID look at through a COVID lens.
They're highlighted in my version,
yeah,
which we are going to share with you.
Okay.
All right. So you'll not only will you have the version 8 evidence guide,
yeah,
but you'll have the COVID highlighted version.
We'll so like we've started with the version 6, and again we stay with version 6, and then just there'll be extra questions to implement.
There'll be a couple of extra things for you around cybersecurity.
Yeah.
But even with version 6, if you are working with version 6, anyone who's going to be assessed now is going to be assessed against version 8. It's just that if you've done all your workbook in version 6, you don't have to change it. You just have to be aware you're going to be asked some COVID questions and you're going to be asked some cybersecurity questions. All right, so nothing to worry about there. That can all be managed. Now, I just want to thank Kay. Is Kay here? Kay from Domestic Violence Service Management in Sydney sent us a great question. I'm just reminding myself of some sort of bad sort of 80s agony aunt when I speak like that. Let's go to a question from Kay from DVSM in Sydney. And Kay said, what is 8.1.8 all about? I don't understand what it means. And I said, let me have a look at that with you. 8.1.8 says, consumer service standards are precise and measurable. Consumer service standards. Oh, that doesn't sound like us at all, does it? So let's see what we can do about interpreting that. In the evidence guide, I'll show you what's in the evidence guide. Let's have a look together at 8.1.8. Because by the time you get down here to this one, like most people, you're pretty spent and you're thinking you don't want to see anything difficult. But there it is. Consumer service standards are precise and measurable. They clearly outline the expectations and inform the consumers on service timeframes, waiting lists, rates, fees, quality of care, risks, all that there. So where would we be explaining to our clients and community about the level of service they should expect from us? Where do we communicate that? What kind of a document might communicate, hey, when you come to us, these are the sorts of standards you can expect to get from us in terms of service quality? What sorts of documents might people have that describe that commitment?
We've got a client charter.
Write that down. That's a great one. A client charter. The client charter should link to things like the Human Rights Convention, you know, or community engagement principles, or trauma-informed care, or whatever kinds of models your service is based on. That's a really great one. Thank you very much. Who else has got another idea for where you might be documenting and communicating the sorts of standards you want to achieve? Now, remember, this can be around any time frames. Do you have any time frames? Do you have any commitments around time frames anywhere in your service information?
Compliance calendar.
Yeah,
What is
compliance
that,
policy.
David? What does the client's calendar talk about? What is it?
Compliance calendar.
Oh, sorry, the compliance calendar. Yes, so you might have some standards around, we will do this by when with our clients. I met a service the other week and they're part of a homelessness front door kind of a alliance. So they have a 24-hour time frame in which to call people back. That's a service standard. A lot of people will have a case management process in place. And you might say, well, the case plan is going to be reviewed every 2 months, or, you know, we're going to catch up with our clients at least every whatever. And I know you're not always going to be that prescriptive, but can you see how documenting those would set a standard for quality? Yeah. So if you're going to make a commitment to your clients and your community, you want to have some standards in place that help you to sort of nail that every time. You know, so you might say, we have sort of ways of working with our clients that are about this. So everything's free, or there's no waiting, or everybody gets in. You know, these become the sort of ways of working that are your consumer standards. And what it says there is they're precise and they're measurable. All right. So I should be able to see, how do you know you're nailing that? How do you know you're doing this well, or this well? Right? How do you know? Are you exceeding your standards, or are you just almost getting there?
Marie, it's Cheryl here. I'm wondering if less formal processes, say, would work. So like just an information booklet that you give to your clients when they came in, that might look a lot more friendly and chatty, but just list the things that they might expect for you. And you could check that then on feedback with feedback surveys, or, you know, so they, you know, you could sort of, rather than have actual kind of prescriptive targets in an information book, you could still check it, you know?
Yeah, that's fantastic. So you might even say every client will get one of these. Every client will get information, this, and this. Every client, you know, whatever you determine is your service standard. You know, every client will get a choice of gender of worker. Now, I don't know many services that can actually offer that, but that would be important, let's say, in a culturally safe organisation, if people are working with elders, you know, that being able to work with this same gendered worker would be important. So the sort of choices that you're giving people as a service standard could be documented. There'll be lots of things that are your ways of working. All right. So think about it from that perspective. What are our ways of working? What do we hold dear? And we say these are our must-dos. These are the things that are driving service quality for us. And could we document that? All right. Or have we documented that? And that would be part of your quality system, isn't it? Your quality system is anything that happens in your organisation that's driving quality outcomes. So that's a great thing to include. But the charter, the client charter, is the thing we generally look for. So that was a fabulous answer. Anything around wait times? Timeframes around driving really responsive case management we look for. So what are your, your review? What standards do you have around review? Some specialist homelessness services will even have timeframes around how quickly the exit plan, the housing plan is going to be developed, right? That might be a requirement of your provider partner. They might say you've got to have the housing exit plan documented by week 3 or something like that. So you can include that as one of your service standards, or KPIs, if you have any KPIs or measures of success listed, they're the sorts of things we really love to see. Lisa, Jen, Bron, any other examples of things that you've seen? Lisa's had to go to the physio, I think. Jen, Bron, Cheryl, have you seen anything else? Thanks for your contribution there.
Many people know how to make a complaint.
Great. So everybody must receive information about how to make a complaint. That's really good. That would be a very good service standard, and that maybe they're given that as a pamphlet or a brochure or something like that.
And then you can evidence it through your interviews with clients.
Yeah.
Big telltale one.
That's a good one. That's a good one. There's also another indicator in there that says something like clients are given information about, and then there's a big long list of all the things they need to be given information about. And a little tip there is, if you're going to say to us, yes, we give them all of that, what would be great is to see maybe a checklist of things that you've given and you've ticked off to say, yeah, I've given them, because we actually need to see evidence that it's implemented in practice. So sometimes a checklist saying, yep, these are all the things that we give. Lots of organisations have that as part of their intake process, but it's really handy for us to see that those things have been given or they've been discussed, because a lot of those processes are done verbally, which we think's awesome. So just, keep a little checklist of the things that you've talked about and the things that you've given. I've seen some great examples of those.
Marie, would things like being treated with respect or cultural sensitivity, those sorts of things, would that come in there as well, do you think?
It would. It needs to be precise and measurable. So if you could show us that everyone had completed mandatory training around cultural respect, or something like that. So I would say to you, well, how do you know that you're achieving that? And so you need to be able to tell me a precise and measurable way. But yes, I think that's excellent. I think that's excellent. Does that help with that funny little one there, 8.1.8? Yeah, okay. Then I would love to hear any comments or anything, any questions. And remember, your great questions that come to us can turn into a nice little session like this, where we all get a deeper understanding of what it's all about, and helps us to drive the topics for the next workshop. We might have a closer look at a healthy workplace next time, because we have been given a lot of resources as assessors about how to assess a healthy workplace. And I think, oh gosh, that's a really big thing that's unique to every service. But maybe you'd like to see the framework that the department have given us about what a healthy workplace looks like. And again, it could be very affirming for you, because we've visited such a lot of healthy workplaces, and we think you're awesome what you're doing, and you're helping to keep us safe too when we come in. So, we really appreciate that. If there's any service excellence admin type things that I'm behind on, now's the time to type to me before I go on leave for a week with my lovely sister. We're going to see how far we can get out of the borders. We're going north, of course, but we're going to see how far we get before we're turned around. Are you good? All right. I'm going to stop recording in just a moment, but I just want everyone wave, because it looks so good. And everybody stay sane, because you are so good. All right. See you next time.
Thank